Hi guys, after the popularity boom that happened with system mangas and manhwas stemming from solo leveling, there has been a lot of bad mangas with terrible stories. Art and boring since most are just copying solo leveling and just modifying some aspects, making them far worse than just trying to make their own. So here comes my list of system mangas that could be considered the gold within the pile of garbage. I hope you enjoy. Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint.
Omniscient Reader is a Korean manhwa with an action-packed plot following out MC Kim Dokja, an office worker that reads web novels as a hobby. One day while on the train he finishes reading 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse, a web novel. Now normally what the main character was doing at the start of the manhwa wouldn't really matter, since things only becomes interesting when everything starts going down and the real story plot begins, but for this manhwa the web novel Kim Dokja was reading is important because the web novel literally gets integrated into his reality. The web novel 3 Ways to Survive the Apocalypse is based off another world like ours where everything was normal and boring until one day a dokabi appears and announces to the world that this world has now become a survival game with different scenarios and quests for everyone around the world, and that this was all created for the entertainment of the constellations, which were gods of mythology, heroes from past historical events, and evil villains that had their name and story etched into history. The novel follows a man named Yoo Jun-hyuk, who is the main character of the novel, with special abilities like regression, where if he dies the world resets and he gets to replay past events with his knowledge from the past. As the novel progresses, he makes allies and beats the scenarios over and over until the end. Now that the plot of the novel has been explained, it is time to talk about what happens to our main character Kim Dokja after reading the novel. And that is, the novel he had just finished reading has now become his reality, as a dokabi or Korean goblin appears in the train cart he is currently in and tells the world and passengers to kill a living thing as the first scenario, which causes the people in the world to be confused, thinking it must be some kind of stunt like every extra in mangas similar to this, but are quickly corrected as the goblin kills someone, causing a frenzy among the passengers. And thus began the first scenario of the web novel, and Kim Dokja's realization that the novel he loved and finished has become reality, and the abilities he has received will be used to help him survive in this world, and using the unique knowledge of the novel to ally himself with Yoo Jung-hyuk of the web novel and gathering strong allies he can depend on to progress through the scenarios. As you can guess from the title, this manga has already come out with an anime, and the story is pretty much already explained by the title. This guy Yuji Sano got ice guide and is now a mage with a tamer skill that allows him to tame monsters in this fantasy world he lives in. But instead of taming strong monsters, he has tamed tons of slimes and a wolf. Yuji is the only character in this manga for the most part. He encounters his fair share of slimes and meets a friendly, robust adventurer, but other than that, he mostly just goes about his business, meeting with isekai mainstays like the Guild Girl and the Guild Examiner. This demonstrates how uninterested Yuji is in his new life completely, but it can also make for a long read. The manga is based on the same named light novel, and there is a niggling suspicion that it may have worked better in novel form, if only because the plot's actual action might have begun a little earlier. The book has some dull spots, but there is still plenty of action. The underlying sequence of the manga is pretty much the same, and that is Yuji enters a new town, meets the people there, does some quests, helps out the people there, or buys/acquires equipment to make himself or his tames stronger. Then some sort of big problem will appear, such as a horde of monsters coming to attack the town, an ancient dragon appears, or some boss monster that threatens the lives of the people who are living nearby. And thus our main character will go out of his way to resolve these problems as a way to pay back the people that have been kind to him during his stay at each place. And this scenario get repeated multiple times, so in a way, in terms of interesting plot, there really isn't any. In terms of action, it comes and goes, as the only decent fight scenes happen at the climax of each scenario. It is pretty much what you expect from a manga about a dude who isn't really that interested in this new life he has gotten in another world. But at least it was good enough to get an anime, so some people have got to really like this manga for an anime adaptation to happen, right? Murim Login is set in a world where gates have appeared all over the world and people with special abilities called hunters exist to fight the monsters from the gates. Which I would say is pretty similar to Solo Leveling. But unlike the main character in Solo Leveling, our MC Jin Taekyung is a low-rank hunter that escapes reality and into the VR world, playing a game taking place in ancient times where martial arts was prevalent. In this game he takes on a character with the same name but was a playboy and useless. But with the help of the system provided by the game he slowly trains and soon becomes a strong martial artist and now travels around the world meeting masters and participating in wars and becomes a well-known person in the game. The story overall is comedic but contains some pretty good action scenes with a steady story development that keeps the readers interested. For the beginning of the story, I would say it would be a standard weak and useless person starts training guided by the system to slowly get stronger and gain the recognition of those around him, changing their opinions of him and shedding off the reputation of his old self. Throughout his journey to get stronger he ventures out into the martial arts world and comes across stronger fighters that he must overcome in order to survive, as well as fighting in a war to fix and expunge the wicked and evil people within his clan. Later on, he is also met with a situation where he meets a overly powerful descendant of the powerful manhwa sect which often appears in martial arts novels in Asia. Becomes friends with him and achieves great feats, spreading his name across the land and thus increasing the reputation of his clan and making his oldest brother proud. This manga is a bit different from the others as the main character Ars is weak and his only power is the ability to appraise others. So this manga is more like a strategy game where you collect skillful characters to help your cause as you progress through the story. The story begins with an ordinary salaryman dying one day and is reborn as Ars Luvant, the son of a noble. He lacks magic and swordsmanship skills, but he does have one talent that no one else has, appraisal. With the aid of this talent, Ars is able to assess a person's potential, current strength, and areas of strength. In light of the nation's current condition, this expertise is very valuable. The ruling class is corrupt, uprisings are frequent, and nobles everywhere are fortifying their strongholds in anticipation of all-out conflict. In light of this, Ars understands that he must also get ready by recruiting talented individuals. As Ars begins to surround himself with individuals to help him in order to establish the most powerful territory, ranging from a persecuted foreigner who is unmatched with the sword to a slave with a hidden ability for magic, he begins building the most powerful territory under his rule. The manga starts off with Ars suddenly gaining the ability to see the statuses of people he looks at. Then going into the training hall for the soldiers under his family and looking at their statuses. While scanning through the soldiers he sees that one of them was struggling to practice swinging with his weapon, and so Ars decides to ask that soldier to take up the bow and to try that, since based on the soldier's stats it seemed he was more fit to use the bow as a ranger than taking up the sword or spear in the front line. After the surrounding soldiers sees this remarkable feat they notify the head of the house, which was Ars's father, and after explaining to his father he decides to explore the territory under his family's rule after learning that war was imminent based on the history book he has read growing up in order to gather stronger talents to fight for his family. At first Ars meets a man on the street that was discriminated against based on the color of his skin. Where have seen this before? Wink wink. Anyways, after looking at this man's stats Ars was able to determine, he was a strong fighter and enlists the man into the army. Afterwards he is met with a random girl on the streets that robbed him, but instead of turning her in, Ars helps her and enlists her into his army as well, since she had an amazing stat as a magician and so on. So pretty much like catching strong Pokemon for future battles to come. Now back to action-packed manhwas. We have SSS class Suicide Hunter following Kim Gongja as he obtains the power to revive himself and take a random skill of those who have killed him. With this ability he has been able to continuously conquer floors of the mysterious tower that has appeared in his world and becomes a king, a title given to those that are at the forefront of the tower conquest with significant contributions. Therefore, This manhwa is a great fantasy/dungeon-based manga with strong powers and a unique storyline that sets it apart from its competitors. The story is good and the power of the MC is something I've never seen before. The story is absolutely fantastic with the variety of quests and environments created in the tower. The art is phenomenal, with uniquely designed backgrounds, scenarios, environments, and characters. It is a wonderful design that leaves an impression on the sub-characters. This story kicks off with our main character Gongja in a small apartment looking at the TV of one of the most powerful hunters climbing the tower and admires him. Then suddenly he sees an ability card appear before him and happily thinks that he has now gained a power and can climb the tower just like the hero he admires. But little did he know that the person he looked up to had a nasty personality and kills Gongja. But thanks to the ability Gongja has received, he is able to come back to like one day before his death. So, like a regressor, and gets to acquire an ability from the person that killed him, thus taking one of the abilities of the most powerful person he once admired. But having found out that this scumbag also has the ability to regress, Gongja decides to kill himself a lot of times in order to go back to the time when the tower first started to appear and when the hero he admired was just a nobody and before he obtained the regression ability and kills him, thus ridding the world of that terrible person. Then he progresses to climb the tower and befriending those who will become powerful in the future and becomes a leading figure for those who climb the tower with his knowledge of the future he had lived in, becoming a guide that helps everyone clear the tower with less casualties and wasted efforts like what he experienced in his lifetime. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more content to come.